Hello, and welcome to the That Child Got Talent New England Cellphone Film Festival webinar series in conjunction and in co-production with Seedbox. Hey, shout outs to Martine. Welcome. Today we have an amazing lineup for you today. We are going to be we're having a discussion series on the future of film. It is going to be today, it'll be next Thursday, and the Thursday after. So for the next 2 weeks, you'll be able to tune in and get some really awesome, amazing information that has to deal with the film industry. As you know, That Child Got Talent, we're all about making movies, right? So a couple things that I wanted to say. We want to talk today about the film industry and what's happening during COVID-19. You know, how are people able to maneuver, make films happen? What is going on? We don't know, but we can't wait to see what others have to say about it. We've got industry professionals with us today, and we're really excited. We also want to, I guess I should probably tell you who I am. My name's Narissa Williams Scott, and I'm the CEO and the lead creative producer at That Child Got Talent Entertainment. We've been around for about 10 years now and still going. We serve as a bridge for a lot of people to dive into the industry on a slightly lower level so that they don't have to worry about some big, huge production, right? And I just want to say thank you so much to our sponsors, Moondog Labs. They've been amazing. Celtics, thank you. Shout out to Nicole. Thank you so much, Stephen. And also a huge thank you to the Bridge Builder Creative Arts Program and Hollis Meminger for being a part of our endeavor. Even if it is on the backside of things, he's been there to encourage and support us all the way through, and we're really grateful. As of right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to Caterina. She is our education coordinator, and she is here to lead us into what we're going to be discussing today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back next week.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caterina Aragon Lopez. I am the educational coordinator for That Child Got Talent Entertainment. And first and foremost, I would like to say thank you for tuning in to our first webinar of our discussion series, The Future of Film. Again, I'd like to thank Narissa and the TCGT, That Child Got Talent Entertainment team, for allowing this to happen. This webinar series was developed for our New England Cellphone Film Festival, a festival that is catered to young people who are creating videos using cell phones. And this festival is going to showcase the talent that we have from our youth, from people ages 15 to 24, and you can submit any video that you are making to this link right here that is showing on screen. Submission deadline is August 23rd, so you're still in time to submit to one of our 3 categories. All of that information is on the website, so please check it out if you are interested, and you might be lucky to win one of our cash prizes that we have. So again, follow this link. And without further ado, we will begin our webinar. So this webinar is going to be a discussion about the film industry. We are going through a time where the coronavirus has impacted us in many fields. Our careers have been kind of halted, and especially in the film industry, the impact has been big, not just in the wide studio companies such as Disney, Warner Brothers, but also small independent companies, and even more smaller than that, indie filmmakers, freelancers, and people who maybe have finished college and are trying to find jobs. Of course, now we are seeing that the countries are opening again, and new protocols have been put in place to keep safety for people who are wanting to resume production. And of course, I wouldn't be able to have this conversation if I didn't bring with you a wide range of professionals in the industry. So we are going to have a conversation with these people, and then we will take a 5-minute break. And after that, we will open the conversation at 4:30 for a Q&A that is open to all of you. So if you have any questions, any comments, use the comments below, write it down, and we will be able to answer any questions. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first panelist. His name is Miky Wolf. Miky Wolf grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. His passion for theater led him to the University of North Carolina School of Arts North Carolina School of the Arts Directing Program. Upon graduating, he made his way to New York City and took a job as an assistant editor to learn more about making film. 20 years later, he's still editing and is now on the roster of Finalcut, a boutique commercial editing company in Chelsea. Miky has cut commercials, music videos, television series, as well as narrative and documentary features. He currently lives in Washington Heights with his family. Thank you so much for being here, Miky. But before we begin, I'll introduce the rest of the panelists. Next, we have Tai, who is a two-time award-winning filmmaker and multidisciplinary artist hailing from Brockton, Massachusetts, now based in Los Angeles, integrating her love for storytelling and with her passion for the technique of filmmaking. Tay has focused her efforts in creating distinct and evocative nonfiction filmmaking. In her free time, when she's not on set, she can be found painting in her room or packing her boogie board on the beach. My bad. Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have Naheem Garcia. Alexis Rene Garcia, professionally known as Naheem Garcia, has been an actor and theater educator for more than 25 years. He grew up in Boston, arriving here from Cuba with his mother and grandmother and aunt in 1968. Woo, shout out to Cuba. He is profoundly bilingual, English and Spanish, and is known for his deep mellifluous, I went to college, voice. He has worked extensively in the Northeast, including with the Huntington Theater Company, Boston Youth Theater, Commonwealth Shakespeare Company, Company One, Kennedy Library, and the New African Theater Company. He is an adjudicator for the Massachusetts Educational Theater Guild, known as Guild, and is a member of the AFTRA and SAG, appearing in several prominent Hollywood and independent produced featured films. Thank you so much for being here. And last but not least, we have Nieves Garcia Perchin. Originally from Spain, Nieves Garcia Perchin is a script supervisor and director based in New York City. She studied film for 6 years, including a master's from Boston University. She has a 4-year experience in short, features, TV shows, and commercials. She is part of the Film Shop community, the Sandbox Workshop, and an official screener for the Female Voices Rock Film Festival. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's so lovely to have you all. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us in this conversation. And of course, can we go individually and just share with us how you got into the industry? Miky, if you would like to go first.
Sure, yeah. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. In the bio, Caterina explained I studied theater, so Naheem and I share that a little bit, and it's still one of my passions, and I love it, and my family is very involved. And I was directing theater and producing a little bit, and when I came to New York, I wanted to, all my friends and I were talking about getting into the film business, but we really, none of us knew anything about it. And I tend to like to just make friends with anyone I meet and strike up conversations, and met someone who said, who had said, I have a really good friend who's a commercial editor and I'd love to introduce you to them. And I was introduced to this gentleman by the name of Chris Franklin, who owns a company called Big Sky Editorial, and him and I hit it off. He loves theater, so we were talking theater, and him and I just had a great afternoon at his studio. And he happened to be starting a documentary, and 2 weeks later emailed me and asked me if I wanted to start as an assistant editor with him. And I think it was just really through personal connection. So he took me under his wing. I took the job, and we worked. I was a comedian, which was the documentary about Jerry Seinfeld kind of getting back into stand-up right after the show ended. Great film, although now 20 years old. But anyway, learned how to edit with Chris and stayed on at Big Sky, and eventually started cutting on my own, and I've been doing it ever since. I moved over to Finalcut a few years ago and love it there. It's the commercial editing world is a pretty small world in New York. Everyone seems, tends to know each other. And I've been fortunate with commercials. It gives you sometimes the freedom, the financial freedom to do other projects that you love, and take time and do those, which, coming from the theater world, I always sort of wanted to, sort of stay in the creative, I love the rehearsal process. That was my favorite part of theater work. And I think the editing room is very similar to the rehearsal process. And I appreciate long form and wanted to do as much of that as I can. So I try to do longer form projects as much as possible. And that's brought me to today.
Awesome. Thank you. Take it away,
Sure.
Tay.
Yeah, so I graduated from college not too long ago. At Emerson College, which is where I studied, I graduated this past December. I studied journalism, which led to me, I first started off in the world of live broadcast. I interned at television studios, and I honestly thought that my life was going to be in front of the camera. I thought that I was going to be a television reporter, but then I found myself falling in love with, the art of writing stories and basically everything that went on behind the camera. I fell in love with that. And, I started to wean off from in front of the camera. And then I just fell in love with documentary. There's so many documentary filmmakers that have inspired me, like Agnes Varda and Jahan Naheem, and all of these powerful women have just kind of inspired me to put my storytelling and take it outside of the broadcast studio and to integrate it into, filmmaking. So packed up my bags after college, moved out to Los Angeles to pursue filmmaking, and now I'm here freelancing, making movies, and having a good time.
That is so nice. Just got to take on that dream.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, Naheem. You're on mute, my friend.
Am I okay? Good. Am I in? You got me? You hear me? Hi, everybody. Naheem Garcia here. I come from my family in Cuba were performers. My grandmother sang at the Casablanca. My mother was a dancer for the International Folklore Dance Theater of Cuba. And so when we got here, it was in my blood. I started, my first theater educator was my grandmother. And so therefore I did theater in Spanish in the bottom of our church. And then in school, I found myself doing a lot of theater because it was my outlet during high school time. And I got the bug. The next thing you know, I'm in Boston Youth Theater. And then after that, I had an opportunity to do a movie called Blown Away. I was a background. And I was just intrigued with the whole movie scene and the whole making of movies. And little by little, things have started working out. I have to be very grateful because March 13th was the last thing that I did. And I stopped working. I haven't worked since then. And then I had the opportunity to do a commercial the following week. That ended. So I just did that commercial last week. So it was the first time working. So how I got into this business is to, I loved it enough to know that I wanted to make sure that I got on every screen that I could possibly get on here in Boston. I live in Brockton, by the way, so there's a connection with Tay. I get the connection with Garcia and the theater connection. So all the panelists, we are connected. But yeah, my deal was I got the bug early in my family, and film just became a thing that fascinated me, and I like to do more. And I realized that one film could give 15,000 people a job. One film, so I realized that it's not only an opportunity to be on screen, but there's so much behind the screen that needs to be done to make a film. So kudos to everybody in this circle that is doing the damn thing. Excuse the English.
That is totally fine. It's real. The struggle is real. So I thank you for that, Naheem. And Nieves, you can go ahead.
Hi, everybody. So I got in film. Well, I always loved film, so I always knew that I wanted to study it. So I did my undergrad in film in Spain. And I guess I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to do films. But my degree was very theoretical, so I really didn't know what each department was doing and everything until I did my internship. And I did my internship in a big series that actually made it in Netflix, a Spanish series. So, and I was just a PA. It was very overwhelming at first, but I started to learn what each department does. And then I was like, wow, I thought I wanted to do production, but I actually want to direct and I want to do script supervising, because I didn't know what it was until that moment. So I decided to keep like forming, to educating myself and learn more about script supervising, which is what I love most with directing. So I did as many short films as possible, mostly student films. And then I went to BU, to Boston University, to get my master's in directing. And then I kept like offering to be a script supervisor for every project, because many smaller projects don't consider having a script supervisor. So I was like, hey, maybe you want to have me. And actually that got me to a lot of contacts and a lot of people that knew and liked my job and started building my resume. And that was great. And then I moved to New York and I had to build that again from zero. But here I am. I've been here for a year and a half now in New York City, and I'm basically mostly freelancing as script supervisor. I also did some assistant director stuff, but I prefer to specialize in script supervising.
I think script supervisors are really cool. I just had to put that out there. They do a lot of work, just having to take time and making sure that things are running smoothly. You don't see much of that work in the production aspect. At least audiences don't get to see that, but it's a lot of work.
It is.
So, yeah. And so, as you can see, we have a wide range of, positions and jobs that you've all partaken in. And so, of course, this pandemic happened so suddenly. We had news about it all the way from China, and then it, just sparked so much confusion. And then suddenly we ended up in a shutdown. So could you all, popcorning, it really doesn't matter who starts, talk about that experience with all of you, from maybe doing something and then ending up in your home? Like, what is that? And how have you been taking care of yourself during that time? Because I think that not everyone talks about the mental toll that this has on your career in the film industry. So
if I could jump in, March 13th was the last day I worked, like I said earlier, and there was no work. I have to be very thankful for residuals. Not everybody had that opportunity to get a check coming in the mail from some work that you've done. And then I realized what's going to happen if this thing doesn't get better. If it doesn't get better, that means that there's no more going to work. And what does going to work look like? Like, I did a commercial last week, but I don't know if I want to be on a film set right now, but I got to work. So, you do other things. You teach. I teach. I work for the Huntington. As a matter of fact, I just got off of a team meeting, with a bunch of teachers with the Common Huntington Theater relationship that we have. So the teaching has helped me, but psychologically you get depressed because you don't know where it's going to go. And everything that you've worked for. I mean, I had a commercial that I was doing, a potential opportunity to do another national commercial. I was directing a play. Everything was happening. This was going to be a bomb summer. I was going to make some money. I was going to act. I was going to do my thing. And then everything stopped. And now you got to be concerned about walking across the street and somebody coughing next to you, because that could be your show. That could be your ticket. You have to learn to be very creative and connected with your friends. I mean, I'm doing this thing because of my connection with TCGT, and that also brought me into the virtual world, because now the new norm is this. I teach for Boston Casting. And a lot of things that are happening, I'm glad that you got to have tools. I taught a class in Spanish. This commercial is the first commercial that I did in Spanish. And it's going to be, and it's, the Connecticut Lottery. It's going to be a big commercial in Spanish. And it was a big deal. But what happened when those opportunities go? Also getting ready to deal with the camera and to deal with the cell phone and to get the lights right in the background. It's hard. And it's very hard. And very few people are going to be very successful at this. Some people are just going to fall out, just like mom and pop restaurants. I don't want to dominate the conversation because there's a lot to be said about this thing. If I couldn't teach, what would really happen? I was lucky. Some people are not as lucky. I have friends of mine calling me, really depressed, really self-medicating, really concerned about, what can I do? Well, let's make, let's make a movie. Let's do something big. I said, we can't do anything. We can't go out. I don't want to, we're shut down. And my son drove to California to live during this pandemic. Once it hit, right in California, and now he's there now. And it's like, what are you gonna do for work? He said, I don't know. The industry's down. So collecting is going to have a limit. That's going to end soon. It's a lot. And then to hear that, I'm glad that here in Boston things got safe a little bit. It could rise very quickly by September, by next week. It could happen. It could go crazy. So, so una cosa loca, as we like to say. Yeah.
It certainly is. And I think one of the most important things that needs to be pointed out is the effect this has on freelancers and young people who are trying to get into the industry. Is this a bad time to start getting into the industry? Is it gonna get any better? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump off of your point, Naheem, about your son moving to California just as this hit, because I'd basically done the same thing. I had maybe 3 months of pre-pandemic calmness. I was working full-time as an associate producer at a boutique production company, working in documentary, and everything seemed so stable and set at that point. And then hit March. I think it was the same week. It was like March 10th. That's when LA shut down. And then a week after that, production shut down. And with that, my boutique production company lost funding because bigger networks like Netflix and HBO stopped funding projects. So if this production company didn't get funding, none of us were getting paid because nothing's happening. So that's kind of the reality that I was dealt with. I lost my job. Everyone lost their jobs within like 2 weeks. No one saw it coming. And for a little bit, it was kind of like, where do we go from here? When LA was in total shutdown, I know for a fact I did not leave my house. No one was working on productions, none of my friends, especially a lot of my friends are freelancers and they had been well established here for a few years. And, it was kind of like, what's going on? Like, we have no idea where to go. And it wasn't until recently, I just got off of a set that I'd actually produced during a pandemic, which I thought I'd never would experience in my life, but I produced a pandemic set. And it's a lot, being a young person just leaving school. And, Emerson didn't teach me how to make movies during a pandemic. No one teaches how to make movies during a pandemic. So it's really like, how do you navigate that? But I personally think that this is the perfect opportunity for indie filmmakers and freelancers like me to come up on the rise. Because if you look at the bigger companies like Disney, Netflix, they're not going into production for any foreseeable time, at least not big ones. It's a lot easier logistically to execute a smaller, more independent set under these circumstances.
Certainly, I agree with you. I was seeing how a lot of the budgets that have been cut are for the mid-year films in big movie companies. And so people have been speculating whether or not that money should go to smaller projects with independent companies or indie films. but that's certainly still unknown. And of course, like now that we're all in our rooms, we've all just been here self-reflecting. Maybe it leaves space for some creativity for young people to be able to get creative on how they can film and what stories they want to tell. So yeah, opening the floor to anyone else, Miky or Nieves.
Yeah, I mean, you know, going along with what everyone's saying, I think you know, on the post side of everything is it's interesting because, first of all, when everything hit, you know, I was like everybody else terrified. I was actually working on a big Verizon campaign for the Oscars with our another editor and a bunch of clients. And when we got news about the virus in China, and I remember it was like early January, and I remember sitting in the edit suite saying, and me and one of the creatives having a conversation about this is going to be a big deal. And it was like a real gut sort of like, I'm afraid. And honestly, like I'm a hypochondriac to begin with, but the whole thing for me was like, okay, how do I keep my family healthy and safe? Like that was my main focus. My wife didn't lose her job, but she works in a restaurant, which is now closed. So she was furloughed and is still furloughed. You know, all of us had to reduce our salaries. We had to let some employees go. It's bleak and tough and difficult. And New York is being devastated by this thing. If you guys are reading the papers, it's like commercial real estate is going through a turmoil. Retailers, everyone's pulling out of New York. So, you know, all the big agencies are letting people work from home. We had a conversation this morning as a company. We were going to open in September and now we're not. We're holding off, and who knows, we might not open our offices again until January. So for us, it was like, okay, how do we continue to operate? On post, a lot of what we can do remotely. And there's some amazing technologies, which we can talk about down the road here, but that have allowed us to work remotely with clients pretty seamlessly. And a lot of the projects, including one I'm starting tomorrow, is mostly stock footage. You know, it's just found footage. Sometimes creatives or directors are shooting stuff in their homes. People are coming up with ways to still, you know, either do the advertising, tell the story, whatever it is. They're just doing it with the means that they have. And I think honestly, like for me, like the most important thing is to just, you were talking about mental health. I've been like religious about getting up every morning and exercising and trying to like set myself at zero and making sure that, you know, especially for my son and for my wife, who actually just broke her foot last week on top of everything else, just trying to sort of like set you know, keep sort of a positive attitude, and help, you know. And I got involved with Bridge Builders. Caterina and I are actually working on this together. And Narissa, we're working on a project with these Boston youth. And one of the reasons I did that was because while this was going on and all the protesting and the sort of social, just the uprising was, you know, amazing and actually kind of like eye-opening for so many people. And it gave us all time to kind of take that in and think about ways that we can help. One of the things I did was find Hollis and say, hey, how can I help you do what you're doing? And that's how, so we've been working on this thing for the last month, which has honestly been such a joy. And, you know, I don't know, I'm hopeful that things will come back, but they'll certainly come back differently. You know, I think that this has changed everything, every industry. My brother's in the theater business, and I think everything is going to change because of this. I don't think anything will disappear, and I think everyone will find ways to adapt. And, you know, creative people are creative people. That's we figure out ways to. But it's definitely it's going to leave a mark for a long time.
Theater is definitely hurt.
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Theater's definitely, we were just talking about the most irresponsible thing to do right now is to open the theater. You know, in the industry, we talked about who is the person that's mostly at risk in a set production, and that's hair and makeup. You know, hair and makeup. Bridge Builders is excellent. You know, I'm mentoring, so I'm getting ready tomorrow morning to see some kids. It's excellent. it was an excellent idea to get young people to be creative with their cell phone in a very personal space without having to worry about a lot of production costs, without worrying about a lot of risk that could take place. So you're right, Bridge Builders, for the last month has been a remarkable thing to see the work that these kids are doing. So you're right, there is life, the new norm, you know?
Yeah, certainly one of those topics that we're going to cover here is that conversation about now the new protocols that have been in place in different countries. I've been seeing some of the production safety guidelines for Massachusetts and some of them for New York. And one of them talks about makeup. So, for example, in the UK, people who are doing makeup they don't have a job because it requires close contact. And so what does that mean for people who have these positions that would be of risk? And, how are they going to be able to do what they love to do if it is makeup, or if it is, like acting, doing romance movies, and intimate scenes are not going to be a part of that. There's so much that is changing and morphing. But before we get into that, I don't know if Nieves, you wanted to give a little input. If not, that is totally fine. We can keep going.
Yeah, if it's fine, I can tell a little bit how everything was for me. I feel very lucky because I was able to visit my family in Spain in February when everything was starting, but still not very serious. And then right after I came back to the US, Spain was hit really hard. So I feel very lucky that I was able to see my family before that, because I don't know when it's going to be the next chance that I get to go to Spain or anywhere else, but yeah, all my jobs that I had lined up actually postponed, and at first I was like, oh, this is great, and I'm gonna have time for myself, and I'm gonna have time to be able to educate myself in all these things that I wanted to do, take all these free courses, because there were a lot of resources, and that was a very good thing from this pandemic. So I was very excited about that. I was being so productive, and then after a couple months, as we were talking about mental health, I realized that I was dealing a lot with anxiety, and it was hard, but yeah, it also like affected me not reaching out to my friends and all of that, because like, what am I gonna tell them, that everything sucks here in New York, that I'm trapped here? So I really didn't want to like bring that up again. But as now, it's exciting because finally we're getting some jobs back. I have actually a few lined up, which is very, very exciting. And I also did a couple of streaming, which streaming are getting really big, and I was helping in production with streaming. So that was nice. But at the same time, all these projects that I have, all of them have been delayed in some way or another. And it's mostly because of the restrictions that they have been having with SAG, the union, because they have been very strict about it, which is good. But at the same time, I think it's limiting some of the smaller production companies. Smaller productions, because yeah, I mean, you need to be careful because the actors are the only ones that are not wearing a mask, and them with the makeup artists are a higher risk for sure. And I read many of the guidelines, and some of the previous one were saying that you need to divide the crew by groups. So like group A, group B, and which ones are the ones that can be closer to camera and which ones aren't. And supervisors actually closer to the actors and so. But it was saying that, for example, makeup artists couldn't do any touch-ups, and that would fall into the supervisor. So it's a lot of changes that is definitely gonna affect the work of everybody, and I don't think many people are gonna be very happy with it, because it limits your job and therefore the quality of the work you're doing. So it's gonna be very tricky for a while until there's a vaccine, at least. But we'll see how that goes.
It's become expensive too, because they're paying actors to take the test so they can get it back in 24 hours. That also means that the actor that's getting paid and the people that are being paid on staff need to, first of all, now that you got paid to take the test, It's your job to stay safe. So that means you have to quarantine. And when you come to this job, you come to this job alone. You come to this job, and you don't bring anything in. I mean, it's just very, 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 very weird, very, very, very serious. But they have no other choice.
Yeah.
We have no other choice, or else we're gonna die as an industry. If we don't really take responsibility. I couldn't visit anybody. I couldn't go out to any of my friends' house while I was working on this production because these people are paying me, and I need that money. I need that money.
There's been some good already some really good sort of small test examples in like the sports industry. I know baseball had a rocky start, but I know hockey's doing this bubble thing, right? And so is the NBA. And I actually think that you're going to start to see productions start to establish a bubble community, and that'll keep everyone. I mean, and again, this is all going to be until we have a vaccine, obviously, and once we have that. But I do think that there, are ways, and you're starting to see it slowly start. Production slowly starting to sort of creep back in again. We're starting to get like boards, and producers calling, which means that they're looking now at, I guess, 3-4 weeks away, 6 weeks away at trying to get in. And this is for commercials mostly, not for necessarily longer form. Although the bubble thing you'd think would work for longer form.
Tyler
Perry did it. He did it for the
yes, exactly.
But he has money.
Yes, so Tyler, it's not only that. So if any of you don't know, and I mean the audience, Tyler Perry is the owner of Tyler Perry Studios. So what he had decided to do as a plan is to have his show series be filmed in a span of 2 weeks, like that amount of time. And in doing that, because he owns Tyler Perry Studios, he is able to get the cast, get the production, and have them quarantine in the Tyler Perry Studios. So everything is contained in that studio. Everyone is moving around, seeing the same people. Of course, they're maintaining the guidelines with cleaning, staffing. And so again, as you were saying, Naheem, that is something that people with money can do. And it's not the case for any other studios. Even, for example, if it were to be Warner's or Disney, they don't have full range to have people quarantined for a span of 2 weeks and then plus another 14 days to make sure that they don't have any symptoms. So how it does that look for people who don't have that money and people who don't have those resources? And so again, like, this is also a question for all of you, if you've had a chance to be on set during this time, what that has looked like. Like you say, Nieves, a lot of the guidelines are saying people have been divided into groups. A lot of people can't move between those groups. Only a certain amount of people are allowed to move around. They have to get tested. It seems as though, as you were saying, like, some jobs are being put into other people's position. So that's extra time and extra work that they have to do. And so you have this weird change in production where it's going to take longer, which is more expensive, but it's out of the safety of everyone. So if any of you have any input on that experience, go ahead and talk about it a little bit, because I'm sure it's very different. We can't go back to the way that we were producing before.
Things look completely different. I can definitely attest to this just coming off of set. We had about a crew of anywhere between 7 to 12 people each day. For one location in particular, the location manager actually capped the entire capacity to 6 people total for a location. So literally, I remember hair and makeup had that space for an hour. They had to do their thing. After that, hair and makeup had to go and do something for a few hours and be on standby if we had to call them in for touch-up, but they couldn't be on location with us. And we were shooting inside as well. So there's also that added pressure of, okay, we're all trapped in this space together where air is being constantly recycled. And really the only thing that's going on in the back of your mind as a production manager is, how can you reduce the risk by like 10%? How can you reduce the risk by 5%? It's having a COVID safety compliance officer on set. It's having gloves and masks on standby. And sometimes it's literally being that person to walk around and squirt hand sanitizer into everyone's hands, because people forget when they are trying to focus on their job. So in conjunction with just, the pressures of working in this industry, with having so many things to worry about, whatever position on set you are, it's also the added pressure of, there's a pandemic, there is a virus out there that is airborne, and how can we combat that? Because we all are really out here, and especially people my age, just starting off in the industry, we have no choice but to work and make money if we want to, make it. So it's extremely difficult. And also having like individually packaged lunch, it's just like all of these little things that you think about as like a manager that weren't a problem before, but it's really like just reducing the risk by however much you can to keep everyone safe.
Craft services, interesting. You don't touch anything. Craft services.
Oh, you don't. Everything's individually packaged, utensils, everything. People, you line up the lunches, people pick their lunch up, and then they go eat in their little corner away from everyone else.
You're not just wearing a mask, you're wearing a mask and a shield. And those of us that had to talk, we had to walk around with a shield right in front of our face. And we had to stand, and every time, so we were doing this commercial for the Connecticut Lottery. And the Spanish and English they did it all in one shot. Here's English, here's Spanish. And every time we had to touch a particular, this person, you're right, the safety person had to wipe everything down, come there, put sanitizer in your hand, stand here, everything is specific. The industry, the union wants it that way. They want you to tell your actors where you need to stand and don't move from that spot. Because if you move from that spot, you're contaminating another. And it can be real touchy. You can get offended if you forget that this pandemic is happening. You might get offended with somebody who's got pressure. Okay, I need you to stand here, and they talk. You know how we are in the industry. You got people that come out their mouth a little bit, like to belittle, like to be very bossy or be rude. And right about now, you got to put all that in perspective and be very sensitive, and very careful with how you're speaking to people and the direction you're giving them. Because you're right, people forget. How many times you got out your car, you walk into the store, and you forgot that you don't have your mask? So in the industry, we're talking, and you have to remember to be, can you stand over there? And you don't want to tell somebody, stand over there, right? Because then people get offended. People get offended. But it was a very positive situation I had last week. People were very clear. The same people that was there every day for 3 days. There was no messing around, and it's a new norm. And I don't know how we discussed. I'd rather be on a commercial set right now than to be in a feature film set. That's just the truth. As much as I want that feature film money, as much as I want it, I'm really concerned about being around 200 people versus 12.
That's a really good point, Naheem. I actually wonder, because I've spent time on set as an editor, and I've always observed, and I don't have any film production background, only as observed as an editor, but I always find that set seems really bloated. I know everyone's busy at certain times, but then a lot of people are not busy a lot of the time. And I'm just curious, because then I get on sets where it's like a fraction of the people doing just as much work, if not more. And I'm wondering if the numbers are going to change on that. And maybe Tay, you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, on this particular production, we really tried to cut down the amount of people on set because we just didn't want to increase that risk factor. And that did ultimately mean we did cut our hours to max cap 9 to 10 hours a day. The goal was 8 to kind of, give people that time. And it was also, some of us had to dual wield, even triple wield certain positions just because we didn't want to bring an additional person on set. I found myself, although I was the producer, I had to order all of the crafting meals before production because I knew on the set I was going to be ADing because we didn't want to bring in an additional person, and I knew that I could get the job done. So there's a lot of compromise and sacrifice. I mean, there's a lot of compromise and sacrifice that you have to make in this industry in general, but especially in the independent community, like those are the corners that we end up having to cut in just such a stressful time like this. Yeah.
That's, yeah.
You know, on the post side of it, I have to say along those lines, when I'm working now, I'm working from like, 8 in the morning until close to midnight. And part of it is, people think, oh, we have time off, but now everybody wants you available all the time because they're not with you, right? So I find when I'm on a job and my assistant's not with me, so I'm doing a lot of that work, and I have great assistants, but I'm doing a lot of that work just because I have it here on my system and I need to. But it is like 2 or 3 times the amount of work I would typically do in a day. It is exhausting, but you figure out how to do it, right? Like and that's a great lesson for anyone trying to get into the industry. The spirit that Tay is talking about, that's the future of film. I think it's like figuring out other ways to get it done, and being as resourceful and knowledgeable about all the different things that you're involved in is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
So bravo to you.
Creative community for sure as filmmakers. So I think that creativity is also coming out into how do we produce this in different ways. I've been producing my short film that I'm gonna also direct, and well, we had to postpone it because of COVID as well. But now it's like, okay, because we're not getting more money, so for the same money, how do we make all these pieces work? Like all the crafty, all the lunches, like how much people we can have, because it's also a question of time. As you were saying, you have to limit the times and no more like having an hour for lunch. Now we're doing friends hours. And also like we need breaks because people need breaks of, okay, I need to take my mask off for a little bit. So you also need to schedule those breaks and make sure that everything is ventilated and all of that you get like clean air when you're shooting outside. So it's all these like moving pieces that if producing wasn't enough already, now you have all of this on top of it.
This is going to be a tough assignment, but it's going to be a lot more expensive in some cases because of all the moving parts. I mean, the beautiful thing is I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you all and I'm like, look at the brilliance that we have in this business. And you're right, Mick. We're going to figure it out. We got to do it a different way. I mean, when I'm not acting, you can't just have one job. If I'm not acting, I'm casting. If I'm not casting, I'm figuring out how to do some AD work, something, because you got to survive. You got to, I mean, it's like, oh, kudos to Spain, by the way. I've been watching some Netflix. I've been watching some Netflix from Spain. You all. And then you're doing what, 99 episodes, and when I'm like, wow. I mean, I was watching foreign movies and the amount of time that they're giving these actors to work. Some people are growing up on these these movies, as these episodes. So it's a beautiful thing. What I would like to see more, and the self-taping and the auditioning part from an actor's perspective, it is difficult. You don't have the right lighting. You have this, you're being dismissed. It was a casting agency in New York that was looking at me and they looked at their inventory, and the reality of life is, even though I have a place in New York too, doesn't mean that, I can deal with the 5 people I've been dealing with. Because the one thing I know, that for the next 3 months, if there's audition opportunity or filming opportunity and the same production people are doing it, more than likely they're going to keep the same kind of crew. They're going to figure out a way to fit you into this part. It's the same thing with production. The same people. No matter, I've been working in 3 different projects and it's the same crew. And I think it's the same thing with the actors. I don't know how, Anita, you're producing out there. So are you always going to look for the same actors since you know their status and you know how responsible they're being?
I mean, definitely, I think the first option would be to reach out to people that I already know and that I feel comfortable that they're responsible and obviously that they're good actors. But you also need to find the right person for the role.
You got to fit.
So I don't believe you should. I think that the character should be like the priority there, and make sure that you cast the right person, because you can have like an amazing actor, but at the same time, maybe it's not right for your role. So it's actually sad. I was thinking about it because like now all these auditions are gonna be online, and one of my favorite parts when I cast is to actually be able to be in the room with the person and like feel their energy and like get to know them, because they can be great actors, but if it's not gonna work, the chemistry director actor is, I prefer to have someone else for sure.
Bueno, si necesito un negrito aquí cubano.
So I love that. I actually wanted to talk about something that both of you are bringing up that is really interesting, and it's that conversation about having more than one job or hiring people that you already know. And since the containment of people in production is very small, how do you think that now this is going to make it more competitive or more difficult for young people, and especially, for example, young people of color, to be able to get hired or start getting into the business because, you know, there are smaller teams. You work with people that you're comfortable with, that you've like known them for a while. So obviously networking is going to be a little more difficult. You know, trying to meet people online is going to be harder. But what does this mean for young people who are trying to get into the industry, or people who don't have jobs, especially people of color who are the ones that get least hired depending on the projects, especially in production teams? What does that mean for the competitiveness now of finding a job?
It's always going to be competitive.
Yeah. I'm going to let you in on a reality that is going to be very harsh, shocking to some, but not new to me. Hollywood, by default, is white. And that is the hard, crashing reality that I faced when I moved here before I even got into this industry. You kind of have to work harder if you're a person of color, especially if you are starting fresh slate, you don't know anyone. You really kind of have to double work to get yourself up there, especially if you don't have the established connections, especially if you're looking to a place like Los Angeles that is oversaturated with people who are in the same industry as you. You kind of have to work twice as hard to prove that you have what it takes. And specifically in the indie world, you know, people do have a tendency to hire the people that they know and that they work with, whether that be for reasons of, you know they work with those people well. In context of this specific pandemic, it's just safer that way to bring on people that you know and trust rather than to bring on, you know, different day players that you've never met before. So, you know, being a young person and being a person of color in this industry, you have to work twice as hard. And I don't have the formula on how to do it. I don't have like a step-by-step instruction or guide on how to do it, but you have to work hard, and you will have sleepless nights because of it. You will have weeks and days where you don't have gigs, and then you literally post for jobs, apply for jobs, and reach out to people every day until you get that one gig that opens up the opportunity and the doors to so many others. You know, you have to work hard. That's just the name of the game.
You know, you said it, sister. Working, especially here in Boston, in a small circle, I probably am one of the few individuals, Black, Hispanic, because I'm not half. I'm Cuban man, but I'm a Black Hispanic male, and I find myself being the only one a lot of times, because, you know, and I won't lie to you, I take advantage of it, you know, because I know what it feels like not to work. I know what it feels like to go to an audition. I remember I went to an audition, 12 people. They were looking for somebody Hispanic. In that 12 people, only 2 people were authentic Latinos. It was an old man and myself. When I walked into that audition, the director said, what's he here for? First of all, to do the audition in Spanish. Well, we already got that casted. Maybe let him look at the gas man, the gas station guy. The person that got casted doesn't even speak Spanish, but looks Spanish. La clase de palabra que le quería meter yo a esa gente. The way I lost my mind, I was like, what? And I was insulted, but it hurts. And it's very hard, and it's very easy to fall into a depression. It's very, very easy, because Erykah Badu said it best. She said, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about mine. You know the rest. You know what I mean? It's so I'm sensitive about my work. So if you don't get casted, the few opportunities that you have, you start to worry about what am I going to do? You figure it out, and you figure out that there's more than one way to skin a cat in this industry. And even when you come in, you got to outwork them. You got to be extra on time. You got to do everything harder because you're not white in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
And it's touchy because, you know, I think there's a lot of people in this industry that don't that are white that are fair, are very, very fair. And then you got some people that, you know, smile in your face and they no, don't cast him. He's, you know, he doesn't fit. You know, how many times somebody has said that? How many times somebody, you know, wouldn't cast me because I'm too dark or I don't fit this. You know what I mean? I get it. Casting is casting. But if you don't get an opportunity because of the color of your skin or you're easily dismissed because of the color of your skin, this is one industry that does not mind. It's showing you that. This is a real industry. And it's real nasty. It's real nasty. There's no business like show business.
That is true.
You know, and show business, I know, and it is a very ugly business. But if you know your parts, you know what you're doing, you got your stuff together, you can move through this. You can do it. You can earn some money too, you know, and save your money. That's the other thing. Save your money. Miky said it best. He said, because of the money, you're able to do other things. I was just sitting here thinking about these small production companies. If you want an actor to be on your piece and the requirements by the union, or if non-union, the industry is for everybody to be tested, and you know you can't afford to pay $150 for 12 actors, so you're going to ask people to take an independent test on their own if it's free, but then you got to give yourself some time. Some of those tests won't come back about 4 to 8 days. How are you supposed to work if you're not if you can't pay for somebody to do the test?
That is certainly true. And I also wonder, since we've had so much movement from the Black Lives Matter movement, if that would possibly change now the way that companies like Hollywood or Disney are shifting, the people that they're hiring and the medias and that they're producing, if that's going to potentially also change. But before we get into that, I am going to say we're going to take a 5-minute commercial break. This is a time for our audiences. If you need to get some water, go to the bathroom, please do. I would recommend you to stay because we are going to play a clip by Hollis Meminger himself. It is his Juneteenth celebration video. And so we'd like to thank him and Bridge Builder Cinematic Arts, who is a nonprofit founded in 2016 to introduce young women and men of color to careers in film and television. And again, thanks to them, Bridge Builder Cinematic Arts Program, for supporting us, That Child Got Talent Entertainment, and the New England Cellphone Film Festival. So stay tuned, guys. We will be back in 5. Thank you.
Free as a bird with his eye on a glance. It just don't look bad. It don't look bad. Don't look bad. It don't look bad. You can see I'm lost. Thrown it all down. It's been a long ride, fighting through the crowd. Free as a bird with his eye on a glance. It just don't look bad. It don't look bad. Time's not so long now. Fly while you can. a strong wind keep you from your land. Don't look back, don't look back, don't look back, don't look back.
And we're back. Thank you so much again. We are here with Tay, Miky, Nieves, and Naheem talking about the future of film during COVID-19. So last we talked about, as I was getting into the conversation about all of these social movements that have been surging in these past couple of months about Black Lives Matter, and you know, not just Hollywood, but even small companies and how they're keeping their accountability with racism and maybe the stories that they're portraying and the media that they want to put out and the people that they are casting. Do you think that there has been a shift in media consumption and maybe how movies are being seen now based on these movements and during the pandemic as well? Because everyone is at home and streaming videos. But, you know, speaking of Black Lives Matter, like, do you think there's content that is being shifted? Are audiences wanting to see something else? Go ahead, anyone.
I mean, it's certainly inspiring as a documentary filmmaker to literally see history unfold in front of you. Like, as someone who likes to, you know, tell nonfiction stories, seeing all this happen is just kind of like fuel to kind of how my brain works creatively. And the most recent set that I worked on was actually like an all Black cast, and most of the cast and crew were Black and brown, and that was incredibly just like rewarding to work on. So I think just independently as a filmmaker, it has kind of reignited that kind of like moral calling that I have as a storyteller and a creator to, one, use my platform, my skills to be able to work on projects like this where I can bring other POCs on set to create something powerful and meaningful. And two, as a documentary filmmaker, to tell powerful stories that need to be heard and, you know, do my due diligence in doing so.
And I think there's you know, I think that it's interesting to look at our industry from two angles, right? It's when you're talking about, Caterina, and that are the stories going to change, and are people wanting to consume different stories? And that's an interesting, I hope so, right? And you hope that those voices are nurtured and studios see the light and you know, are taking on more socially responsible films. And I think most are going to try. Hopefully that will sustain in the long run. But then I think the other side of it, and something that we've noticed, is because we've done so much introspection as a company, for my company, Finalcut, in terms of like who we are. You know, are we culturally, are we, you know, supportive of all races, and we're looking at the makeup of the company, which happens to be mostly white, was painful and true. And it was like, and that's part of why I was reaching out to Hollis. And one of the things I realized is most of the editors I know are other white men. And now it's becoming more common, and we have a lot of women, amazing female editors in our company, but they're also white. And so I started looking around and realizing that there's a problem in, I think, how younger people of color are exposed to our industry. They hear about actors and they hear about directors and writers, but they don't hear about what a color corrector does, or an editor, or a sound designer, or a wig. And, you know, there might be a kid that's like loves clothing, and they're like, wait, I can design clothing for film or television or theater even. And so that was part of our mission now going forward, is to try to like get to these kids at a younger age and just expose them to all these different things. And then, you know, and then obviously follow up with the ability for them to come intern with us and to nurture. Internships for us have always been kids coming out of NYU for the summer. And those are always kids typically of privilege, and they're great kids, but it's because they can, because they're, and so instead we're changing that whole dynamic, and we're going to be going after kids that we need to help support and give them money so that they can be exposed. So little things like that. And I'm hoping that we're just one small example of how the industry on a whole changes its entire perspective on, you know, exposing different people from different walks of life to what we do. If that makes any sense. I felt long-winded, and I don't know if it made sense, but.
No, we had Gabby Subney put it on a comment, well put, Miky. Okay. So I think a lot of us agree with the same thing. And I certainly do agree with that comment as well. You don't hear much of people of color in production teams and what they do. And it isn't, because again, if we consider, for example, Oscars, you only get a certain amount of awards for certain production team members, not all of the production. And then all of the rest are compiled into Best Picture. Mm-hmm. And so how are you going to know the individual people in those productions and the jobs that they do if they're all just compiled into one category?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. I certainly think that there has been a lot of accountability on especially streaming services, especially talking about, and this is something that I still try to have a conversation about, is tropes when it comes to, you know, stories about people of color, and how, especially the ones written by white people talking about people of color, how they fall into specific tropes and specific characters, like especially Latina women who are of darker skin tend to be the maids or the love interest, the affair. And so are we breaking away from that and seeing more stories? Even the award-winning movie Roma, like, although beautiful story, it is still a story of a Mexican indigenous woman as a maid. And it still has a lot of like different cultural contexts, and it has different people, but you see like that racial dynamic. And so are we going to be able to see more stories that are kind of separate from those tropes that we see? I don't know, Naheem, if you have any thoughts and ideas, or any of you as well.
I would hope so, because you're right. I'm getting tired of seeing the black and brown people playing those roles. Why can't it be the president or the lawyer or the head of the intelligence department? You know what I mean? Because those are if you're constantly showing images of black and brown people playing these roles, subliminally, that's what the young people are going to start thinking, that that's all they can do. Because these movies do teach.
That was the brilliance of Hamilton in a way, right? Like the idea, although there's been some controversy on that, I still totally disagree, because I think, Naheem, to your point, it's like, let's see what it, you know, even in a sort of like in a dream, let's just see what that looks like. To have a black George Washington, how that feels.
Certainly, there's a lot of conversation about that as well. And so I think for me, I would want to ask you all, especially in the aspect of production, and we talked about, people of color having to work twice as hard. Now it's going to be 4 times as hard because, the teams are smaller and there's so many guidelines, which again, it's for safety and it's for making sure that everyone stays safe during production. But I wonder if there can be a point where we can reach in the film industry for it to be equitable to people, especially like people of color with disabilities, people of color with who are, of the LGBTQI plus community. Can they be included? Will they be able to find a spot in here? In the industry to be able to either be part of a story that relates to them or make stories about their life and experience.
I've noticed it. I've noticed a lot more shows about the community, and they're taking leadership positions out there in their stories. So, and it's, it's refreshing to see that they have a voice and they have the opportunity to use this platform,
Yeah, I have noticed in it as well that you can see more diverse stories, and it's good to see because now we're proving those stories are proving like bigger studios like, okay, these stories have interest, like people like them. It's not only for this minority, it is for everybody. Like we all can enjoy them. And I think that was one of the reasons that they had of like, oh no, this is not as it's not gonna be as profitable than other stories. And we're proving them wrong with all these stories. So I think we're gonna see it more and more whenever production resumes, for sure.
Certainly, let's hope for a better future. I'm going to ask you all one question, and I think it's more towards youth. So young people that are trying to get into the industry, for example, if they are freelancers, what advice can you give them? Or if they're trying to find funding for their independent film, if there are actors that are struggling to start networking, or if they have no idea how to get into editing, what advice can you give them?
I would say if you're a director or you are in any of the heads of departments, I would say first have a good script. Like, don't go into production and like invest a lot of effort and money if you don't have a good script, because I think that's huge for whenever you plan to put it up there and like distribute in film festivals or however you want to do it. Like if you don't have like a great story to tell and it's like well told and it has good subtext and everything, don't put all that work on it because it's not gonna go anywhere really. It doesn't really matter how well shot it is. Maybe for a DP it's worth because they have some shots for the reel. But the project itself, I don't think it's gonna make it that far if you don't have a good story to tell. So for creators, I would say that's the first thing that they should consider. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of money. Make sure that you're gonna do something good.
Spend it wisely. Spend that money wisely. I would say learn to do more than one job. Don't get stuck on always wanting to be the director or the writer or the actor. Be all of it, because at any given time you might have to go from the grip to the AD. It could happen. So yeah, do more than one job.
And it makes you a better filmmaker to know what everybody does. Absolutely. As a director, I consider like the more I learn from other positions, the better my directing is, and the more options I think I have for shots and for storytelling techniques. So yeah, learn as much as possible from other people.
And I think all first-time directors should edit their own films. I don't think that's true after your first film, but I think if you really want to learn how to make movies, if you try editing, because you'll learn so much about all the mistakes you made on set And if somebody else fixes all your problems for you, you won't learn the next time, which happens more than you think.
Yep. I agree.
My advice to young filmmakers that might be in the same boat as me, or you're about to graduate college, or you're about to enter this industry, the first thing I learned is don't undervalue yourself. I think that is the most important thing in this industry. Do not undervalue yourself. If you're not given the resources, the tools, and the support that you need to do your job, recognize that and ask for it. You are working on a team, and I cannot emphasize the need for collaboration so much, because so many times have I seen productions fall apart because of lack of communication or collaboration, or someone literally undervaluing themselves and taking on way too much more than they can handle when they could have asked for help. Second thing is be patient, and be patient with yourself. When you start off in this field, if you're like me and you're coming from a city like Brockton and you're moving to big Los Angeles, you are going to be scared. You are going to be culture shocked. You are going to want to run home and just be in your safe place. To make progress in this field and within yourself as a professional creative individual, you need to feel, process, and be very uncomfortable and scared all the time. And that's just the name of the game. You're going to be scared. You're going to be unemployed for weeks. You are going to wonder how you're going to pay rent. I'm going to be real. That's just how it is. Especially in this economy, that's going to happen. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But what you need to maintain is passion. And we're all in this field because we are passionate and we are creative people. If you're not passionate, if you're not creative, I don't know why you're in this field. This industry is for those who care about what they do, who care about collaborating, who care about creativity, and they are willing to put in the time and effort. So if you're going to make it up there, if you're going to put yourself in the position where you might get maybe 1 gig a month or maybe 3 lined up in a whole month, you need to be prepared to be patient with yourself, to value yourself, and to also fight for it. So that is my advice to young filmmakers.
My advice to you, Tay, is you should be teaching.
I'm too young for that. I'm still learning myself.
And you just dropped a pearl. What? That was beautifully said.
I agree. I also agree. It is really important for young people to know that the amount of times that a lot of the way that this industry can break people down and the false hopes it gets you. I think the best thing I heard was it takes 5 years to make it through in LA. Just to live
might
there.
Take 5, might take 2 months, might take 3. All that matters is that you got your eye on the ball and you're willing to work for it.
Right, exactly. And since I have you all here, I'm just going to take advantage of having you and just ask you, what is one little secret that you use, or one skill that you have that has been so helpful to you towards your career path? I know it is kind of similar to the advice, but I kind of want to hear it as in personal to you during your experience, especially during COVID.
There's a loaded question.
Well, one thing that my mom has always told me, and my mom immigrated from China here when she was 16. She told me, and she keeps telling me to this day, English is king. And what she means by that is the capacity and the ability to communicate with others is 90% of any job. The capacity to be able to communicate your ideas, your needs from other people, that is how you get work done. So always, I keep that in the back of my mind. I have this ability to speak English, which is pretty that's a huge privilege and advantage to have in the majority, in this country. And with that privilege, that kind of unlocks the door to so many opportunities. So I take something as small as being able to speak English as, a key to anything that I want in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree as well.
Side, yeah, for sure. I think something that helped me is that I'm really good at making people feel good about like their work and how, and like maybe I have an idea or something that might help with a situation or a problem or something. So I think I have become very good at like asking in a way that it sounds like it's their idea, you know, and I'm just there like pointing it out or something. So I think that really helped me, and they really felt that with me, they could like trust me, and instead of just, I don't know, make them feel good about it. I know it's, I don't know if that's the answer that we were looking for, but I think it's important to create good relationships with the people in the crew, and make sure that if the director is the director, you have to respect that, and they have the final say. And if you think you have a better idea or something, you have to know how to present it to them for sure. But yeah, communication is key for sure.
I just to second that, because my one piece of advice is very similar to that, Nieves, is I think that criticism is a very difficult thing to take. Being a creative person, and I've been doing this for a long time, it's always hard to hear criticism. I don't care how long you've been doing it. And so learning how to give criticism is an art. And you can practice this with your friends, and you know, learning how to see the good in something is very hard to do. But if you really want to get somewhere and you really want to develop relationships and collaborations, you have to learn to find the good things. It's very easy to find the things that are wrong with creative expression. It's much more difficult to find the beauty, except you won't get anywhere until you start to see the beautiful things that are there. And you won't get anywhere with relationships or collaborations or any kind of creation. So it goes along with what Nieves is saying. It's learning how to criticize in the right way. It's just, you know, it's hard and it takes a lot of time. And I wish a lot of people I work with were better at it.
And you got to develop tough skin. This is a very nasty business, and if you don't develop some tough skin, I mean, you know, criticism, I can't take it to this day, you know, and it messes with your head. It does. You know, you start really sitting there like feeling like is something wrong with me, or maybe I don't cut it, or maybe I shouldn't be in this business. But you got to get a little tough skin. I think what helped me was also personality, you know, being nice and being kind, but being likable. That does not mean go and kiss. I was about to say the wrong word. Kiss somebody's backside. What it means is that you got to learn to appeal to people some kind of way. I mean, the name of the game is this is business. You know, people in this business tend to kiss up a lot because they want to get friendly or they want to get close to that director, that producer. But one thing I noticed, especially when I was talking to Denzel, when I was filming with him, they're looking for real people. They want you to be real. You know, they see you coming. They're dealing with actors all day long. They smell phony when they see it coming. And you got a lot of people in this business that are out to get a whole lot for very, very little. Very, very little. So get some tough skin. Get some tough skin and be sure and be clear about your next move. Don't make a move out of weakness, but a move out of power. Be in a position of power. Even if you're the lowest person in the totem pole, make sure that you're in a position of power. That means you got to learn to speak your truth and know when to say it and how to say it.
Amazing. I agree with all of you. This is very important information for a lot of young people trying to get into the industry. So thank you for all of that. Again, like your experiences are going to inform a new generation that are coming in, especially during this time, because the films that they're going to be making now is going to be part of history. So let's get into the Q&A section. We do have a couple of questions from our audiences. So we have Martine. Do you envision more cross-industry collaboration in order to diversify and potentially prepare of there is a second lockdown? If there is a second lockdown.
Yeah.
So is this the question? Okay.
Yeah, it's on screen.
Yeah, second lockdown. I'm pretty sure.
I'm not really sure what it means when you say diversify.
I think in fields. So if you want to, for example, cross-pollinate. So we are here doing a conversation about film, but of course we are a production company. But if, for example, I would like to speak to mental health in the film industry, so I get maybe specialists like therapists or psychiatrists to talk about the pressures and how people can take care of themselves during the pandemic or in a production set during the pandemic. So that's what they mean, like cross-pollinating with industries.
I think there has to be, if not even just for, you know, the fact that there is this pandemic, just because the industry does call for fully fleshed out and thoughtful stories. So I do think that we are kind of at this point where we do have to consult every other kind of aspect of the way humans live life to be able to tell human stories. I think that for a really long time, that's kind of been neglected, and people have kind of just been, you know, writing stories that might not always represent, you know, human life the best that it can or could. But I think now we're at this point where the need and call for that is greater than ever.
Yeah, people's stories need to be told, and I think this is the opportunity that people are going to take to really tell their story. I think we're about to see in the next couple of years, as far as visual material, I think it's going to be very exciting, because this is a very exciting time to be alive. It's very scary, but it's a very exciting time to be alive. If I didn't live to see this, I wouldn't believe it. 25 years from now, I wouldn't believe it. Just like the Titanic. Oh, it's a nice movie, but the people that were around during that time and experience, they got a lot of stories to tell about that. And it was important to tell that story. How did it affect you? This COVID thing has affected us. I mean, it's brought my family together. Like my family's in Miami, and it forces you to connect with a lot of people. But at the same time, I think about the people that are lonely, you know, and that are lonely in this industry and have nobody to talk to, nobody to work it out. That's where it gets pretty sad and sour. But the diverse, I mean, yeah, I'm gonna come back because it's a loaded question. It's a very loaded question, because you don't know how it's gonna happen or when it could happen. If we get a second wave, I don't know what that second wave might mean.
Yeah, it's a lot of uncertainty for sure for the second wave. So gotta stay protected, wear your mask, take your hand sanitizer, wash your hands, 6 feet distance.
Vote.
I don't know, yeah, go ahead, Miky.
No, I just said vote.
Vote. That's also important. That's also coming up. Very important votes. Please vote if you can. I can't vote. I'm not a citizen.
But do it too.
Hey.
Yeah.
So, if I could ask Nieves, before going into another Q&A, how's the experience been trying to find work, not being from the U.S.?
Ooh.
Especially in this industry.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure if it has been as hard for me being an immigrant as much as being a woman. So I don't know what has weighed more in that. But at the same time, I think I got more opportunities than even in Spain. So I guess I can consider myself lucky for that. But yeah, I'm not sure. I definitely struggled, but once I was able to start working, I think people got to know me, and that wasn't an issue anymore.
Yeah, when it comes to U.S. immigration, it's really complicated, but that's a story for another day. It is very important, folks.
Oh yeah, I could talk for hours about that.
Yeah, we could totally have another webinar about that, because believe me, it's stressful. Anyways, to our next question. I think it is Tamia. So let me pull it up here. Miky and Nieves, do you have plans to work on a project on the topic of COVID or the pandemic? And I guess this could also open up for everyone else.
I mean, I feel like everything in some ways has to do with the pandemic, but we've done a whole bunch of stuff already. We did a short series of docs just about children's perspective on the pandemic, and and I feel like all the bridge builders work is all these kids making films about how they're dealing with COVID. So I feel like we've been in the sort of business of trying to process, what this is with a lot of the projects we're working on. But I personally don't have any pandemic themed project in the making. In fact, in some ways, and even me personally, I'm trying to like read books and see movies and do things that like take me away from the pandemic, because it's like my way to escape. But I certainly hope that there are, and Tate can speak to this, but I hope that there are documentary filmmakers that are documenting this time and thinking about ways to reframe and tell these stories that are happening now. And it's important. I'm just not personally doing it.
Yeah.
My next project is actually a web series, a comedy web series that I'm working on 2 episodes. And one episode is about the Black Lives Matter movement, and another one is about COVID and the quarantine. And so yeah, definitely are people creating content. As for me, I don't feel that I need to tell stories about COVID per se, but I feel very inspired to talk about stories about mental health. Well, that's something that interests me a lot, but I think I'm going to be very inspired on how the quarantine and everything affect me and other people, but probably I'm not going to make the COVID situation the stage for that story, but it's definitely going to be an inspiration.
Well, due to the COVID, the mental health issue must skyrocket,
Yeah.
Especially, like I said, the people that are lonely. I'm still friends with my 6th grade teacher who calls me, who lives by herself. Yes.
That's so sweet.
Lives by herself in Newport. And, and she's the one that really in school got me into theater a lot. And she talks to me about, and she wants to go on and on and on and on. And I'm like, oh, but I got to think about where her state of mind is. And if she doesn't get a chance to talk and ramble or read, or like I go to the yard, I do my yard. I work on my yard this every day, no matter how hard it is to forget about the fact that I can't go anywhere or can't spend some time with my friends or can't be on set.
Great. Our next question comes from Samantha, and it's for Nieves. Have you been in conversation about what films may come from this moment related to social justice, given Black Lives Matter movement, protests, the global pandemic, or other economic challenges?
Not really for now. I think that's gonna be a little bit later in the future, because I feel since we all stopped working, there were so many stories that were gonna be told, and then they suddenly stopped. So I think those stories are gonna be the first ones to be told or to be shot. But I think definitely people are gonna start making content about this whole situation, both like social, health, and economics. And we'll see with the election, that could be like a whole new topic that could, I don't know, create more stories about anything,
Very true. We'll see what happens after November. Next question comes from Tamia again. This is for everyone. Is there anything that is happening now as a result of the pandemic that you think we should have been doing all along?
Working from home.
Washing,
That's right.
Working.
washing our hands.
Careful.
Accommodations.
Wear mask. It's kind of incredible to still see people not wearing mask or wear it like here on the chin. Is like, it's so easy. Just do it.
Wear the mask. Well,
Yeah.
how about wanting the desire for people that want to gather in abundance? I mean, in large groups. Why do you want to surround yourself around somebody who you don't know if they have this virus? It's the dangerous thing. But people want to be in large groups, not small groups, in large groups. Up the street from my house, there was a party every weekend. And I just didn't understand, how are you partying with a pandemic? People forgetting. So,
I mean, that's one side of it, which I completely don't understand. But I will say, and I agree, Tay, working from home, is going to become a reality for a lot of companies. But I personally am really looking forward to there being a vaccine and getting back into the office and being around my coworkers and working with my collaborators in person. There's an energy, and this is what I was talking about earlier. Rehearsing, as Naheem knows, rehearsals in a play are so exciting when you're in that room and you create that energy. And the edit room can get that way with directors and producers and creatives. And I miss that. You can try to do it virtually, and you all have great energy, and I'm feeling it, but it's just not the same when you're like working on a scene or working on an act. And so I'm really looking forward to getting back and going out to dinner with my family and, having a drink after work. I really honestly just can't wait. I know we all can't wait, but I'm really looking forward to this vaccine.
That is certainly true, Miky. And I agree. I'm an extroverted person, so I love being around people and feeling the energy. I think that what is important to highlight, however, is that when we're talking about working from home, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tay, we're mostly talking about accommodations, especially for people who have disabilities, people who are forced to go into the office when they might have a chronic illness. And, work from home is possible. So I think that is where it was coming from. And especially if you need a day off and not be in the office because you might have, anxiety or you're having a really bad day, that should be accommodated to you and not taken as a vacation day, in my opinion.
No, totally. No question.
Yeah, I also just coming from a place where I feel like, especially in this country, the work culture here is perpetuated to such an extent where it's like, if you're not constantly at your desk, you're not working. I don't think that's true. And I think that this has kind of showed that. And I also just miss having a lack of LA traffic with everyone going to work.
No, traffic has gotten a lot better.
That's hilarious.
A 10-minute ride, a 10-minute ride was becoming an hour. So, now it's a 10-minute ride, But the minute they opened the doors, that 10-minute ride became an hour again. So it has been a little refreshing, to be locked down. I mean, it's nice. It was that commercial. It said your travel to work is a short distance. She went from one end of the couch to the other to her computer. I mean, to be in your pajamas, to wake up in your pajamas and and do your work and not worry about somebody constantly seeing what you're doing, getting up, getting a meal, eating all the time, sitting in the back porch and doing your work. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I could be in my pajama pants right now and y'all don't know.
Yeah.
Meetings are always a nice shirt and you're wearing pajama pants. You can't lie. You can't lie. That's the reality. Great. Our next question is from Samantha. The NBA decided to create a bubble for everyone to keep their industry going. Is this idea something that could work in the film industry? We talked a little bit about that, but if there's anything else you'd want to add, go ahead.
I don't know what that would look like. I mean, if you're doing what Tyler Perry did, that's different. But what happens when you're working on, we just finished wrapping up? No, not just finished, but we did Free Guy. Free Guy was loaded. They shut Boston down. The only way I can see that is keeping everybody, but that's expensive. You're talking a lot of money bubbling people, especially if you got a big project like Free Guy was a big project. At any given time, you had 200 extras on set. How do you bubble that?
Yeah, it needs to be a very big project so production can afford that. Because I heard, and I was interviewing for a feature, and it was even a low budget feature, but they were considering to have everybody in a house for 2 weeks before. But you need to pay those days because it's some days that you're not working for other people. So not only you're paying the place where people are going to be, but you also need to pay those days for everybody, even if they're not working. They're work days. So unless you have a lot of money for the production, it cannot be possible.
That is very true. Another thing that I noticed was, especially big companies, they were thinking about making production and movies completely virtual, like digitalized, having maybe one person go and take a photo of the desert and then bring it back, kind of what they did with the most recent Star Wars movie, and then they just create it digitally. That way you prevent.
God, that would, I really hope that does not become, I mean, it's just so sad. It's like we're just eliminating all humanity from, I mean, you can create, and they try to, and a lot of the newer Star Wars films, some of them are good, some of them are terrible, but if you start to really like take people away from each other, then, we start to lose that sort of human connection, which makes, drama.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still why
Miky, wouldn't that be good for editors? I mean, you would be working all the time.
It certainly would be for effects artists and editors. It would mean, but it's I guess also why I love going to the theater too, because I'm always looking for the energy, and I love two shots, right? Like when you start cutting to singles, it changes everything. But I love seeing, and I love directors that take a frame and let the drama unfold in the frame. So it's certainly, and they're trying to do it, and it can be done technologically, but God, I really hope that, again, we just get this vaccine sooner than later, and we get people back in scenes together in person.
I absolutely agree. If we go all digital, that would, take away a lot of the magic of filmmaking. At that point, you're just kind of making an elaborate PowerPoint.
Yeah.
or just animate. Like, Pixar makes beautiful movies that, I mean, I can cry 50 times during a Pixar movie, and I could watch one a day. I'm just, or the Studio Ghibli movies. I mean, there's so much animated film that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys will continue to make brilliant films. But although I guess Ghibli not, right? Is he done?
Yeah.
Yes,
he's done. Yeah.
Films, but
Miyazaki's done. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, so speaking of big budgets, a little interesting question from India. With COVID affecting in-person filming and creating, has it made a difference in your opinion on how media can be created at home with the resources that creators have access to every day?
You got a camera right here. Everyone has one.
Yeah, and India's a mentor for Bridge, so she knows exactly what's happening. It's happening. It's happening right before your eyes. You're part of it. You're mentoring young people that are doing that. So, yeah, you answered your own question.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the Cellphone Film Festival.
Yeah.
You guys can make movies and submit.
Which is brilliant, by the way.
Yes, you can.
Which is
Thank
brilliant,
you.
by the way. And my grandson's going to submit something. You better believe that.
We love that. We'd love to see what he has. But I guess to piggyback a little bit, so if you have any resources or advice for low budget films or ways to make videos for zero money, what do you think some young people could use currently?
Just experiment. Practical effects go a very long way. That's how everyone gets started. You have a pretty powerful camera right here. You can use practical things like a water bottle or glass to create practical effects. Some people genuinely do, especially in the experimental world, just go very guerrilla and practical with the filmmaking that they make. And I think that's a really great way to start off with, getting your brain in that kind of mindset of directing and creating and innovating ideas.
Yeah,
I think don't discount sound. I think as an editor, I think my point of view is
true.
Everyone thinks about picture and nobody ever thinks about sound. Make sure you're like getting good. It's my example is like if you can watch a movie and if there's like it's a little out of focus or it'll be a bother, but if there's like a bad soundtrack and you can't hear what someone's saying or the people will tune out immediately. It's like they don't forgive it. So even with your cell phone, try to get a good good dialogue track in there.
How do you do an ADR with a cell phone?
It still has to happen in post. You still have to edit, even on your cell phone. You still have to get it into some WeVideos, the platform we've been using with Bridge Builders, which is an online editing platform, which is kind of awesome. Works with your cell phone, but you still have to do ADR in the editing system.
That's really good, and I love this question because I'm gonna put it in here. But the third webinar for our series is going to be about advice for young people to how to make films without a budget, and we're going to have people who were in productions that had small budgets to be able to give advice about that as well.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, that's really exciting to have that conversation. And so another question coming from Melody: advice on people planning to move to a new city, state to kickstart their filmmaking career at this time.
Don't.
Everybody running off to Hollywood.
Okay, so no. Do it. Do it if you think it is a smart decision. Don't decide to do it just because you think that you're going to move here and get a job immediately, because you're not. Do it when you have savings, when you have connections, and when you have a solid, 2 to 3 year plan, or even, I'd say, logistically think about it and be like, all right, rent in LA or rent wherever you want to move is this much, save at least enough so you'll have a few months covered, have a rough game plan, or you can come out here like me and, start applying as soon as you move in. I'd say just move with confidence and have, a backup plan, a safety net if all goes downhill.
And try to I still think moving now is just, it's so hard. You can't network now. So it's very hard to get out and meet people. But to today's point, I had a young girl, actually Maya Castro's sister from our program, reached out to me this morning, and it was awesome. And she's like, I just wanted to meet you and talk to you. And I might come to New York in 6 months. And I just wanted to be on your radar. Do things like that, like reach out ahead of time and call production companies, editorial companies, whatever it is, get on their radar and say, hey, I might be there and maybe we could, have a chat when I get there. And if you can line something up before you move, you're going to be much happier landing.
Yeah, preparation's everything. My son left to California and I was really concerned about how's he going to find work when everything's getting shut down. But you're right. If you have preparation, if you're reaching out in advance and letting people know you're coming, hey, I'm in town. I know I made it. You'd be surprised what happens. Yeah, preparation. Preparation's everything.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
And everybody got silent after that.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
It's always good if you're a Virgo. I'm a Virgo, so if you need a planner, I can help.
Caterina, by the way. Caterina.
Don't ask
I love
up everything.
Just always got to stay prepared. Yeah. And so we'll have our last question from Jessica. She asks, what are some ways you've stayed motivated both creatively and professionally during this time? Ooh, I like that.
I got a big mouth. I'll jump in first. The opportunity to do some readings with actors on Zoom and finding ways to be creative and pushing actors to connect in this visual way. That's been a challenge and a motivation. And cleaning my house 2 or 3 times a day.
For me, it has motivated me a lot to think that hey, now I have the time to do all these things that I couldn't do while I was working and while I was looking for jobs and all of that, because that was my priority. But now I cannot do it, and it's not expected from me to do it because it's literally not there. So I took that guilt out, and I was like, okay, so now I have this bunch of ideas that I would like to develop, and I started with that. So having taken off that load of being working all the time, I think that helped me to write.
I feel like I'm a habitual creator, so when I'm not working on movies, I paint a lot. I find that just like doing creative things and having my brain exercise in a way where, you know, I just start with an idea and I kind of nurture that idea into a final product. I really like that process. So I paint a lot. I also hike a lot and I go surfing a lot. So I feel like going out and just seeing the world and, you know, just actively exercising your body and mind keeps you at your freshest. So treat yourself with love and care and do things that you love doing.
Go rollerblading.
If you know how. I don't know how.
One of my
I
favorite
don't know how to
teachers.
surf, and I want to try. So
One of my favorite teachers used to say that your brain is a sponge, and you know, particularly when you're younger, you just want it to soak up everything. So I also, beyond just exercising every day, I try to like read as much as I can. I try to read the newspaper. I try to watch movies and just fill myself up, because creativity is there. You have a well and you can fill that well. So, you know, if you're able to paint, or, you know, you can, you know, read a book, whatever it is, you're always sort of filling the well, listening to music, whatever you do, everything feeds and influences all your creative decisions. So fill it up.
you know what I found fascinating is also reading a lot of my friends who are writers, reading their work and, you know, watching their movie in my head. That's been really exciting and motivating. You want to get out there. I can't wait. I can't wait. You know, I want to do this and I want to do that. And then, you know,
It's awesome.
yeah.
That is really true. Collaborating and working and helping others is also something that Child Got Talent Entertainment stresses a lot, especially for young people who are trying to get into the industry. And so, as you know, Emerson College stresses, as an alum, you are working with the future and the people who are going to hire you. So it's always good to get to know people and to work with them, because they're going to be the ones that you're going to be collaborating with. But with that being said, we have reached the end of our webinar. So Tay, Miky, Naheem, Nieves, thank you so much for your time. You have been absolutely wonderful, and thank you for giving us your experience, your insight, and everything that you are, you know, sharing with young people, because it's important. We are in a very important time in our history. And so please follow them on social media. We have all of that information in our social media in the page, and check out what they're doing. And I hope that, you know, in the future we can continue doing conversations like this with other topics. So yeah, again, thank you so much for doing this.
You did a great job, sweetie.
Yeah, Caterina.
Thank you.
You got the movie.
It's what I love.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I'm going to end this by, again, thanking TCGT Entertainment for allowing us to have this webinar. Thank you, Seedbox, as well. And thank you to all of our sponsors for supporting us. Moondogs, Celtics, and oh my goodness, I'm missing someone else. Bridge Builder Cinematic Arts, and everyone else who is tuning in. So again, if you want to submit to the New England Cellphone Film Festival, the latest deadline is August 23rd. Spread the word. Check out that link at the bottom, and please tune into our next webinar, which is going to be exciting because it's going to be about women of color in the film industry. Exactly. We are going to have again, a panelist of amazing women who are in the profession. They're doing just wonderful, and they're going to give us their insight, and we're going to have a deep conversation about the reality of representation of women of color. So again, stay tuned, and we'll see you next week on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, wear a mask, register to vote, be kind, be empathetic, take your time, be patient with yourself, just spread love all the time. That is what we are here to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Treat yourself, y'all. Love yourself.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.